So that was totally not our fault at all. The solution was turn it off and on again. Well, hi Brandon.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. So maybe we should just try playing it by ourselves and hope that Randy joins us sometime.
Maybe somebody will show up.
So maybe press enter. Let's see. Oh, focus on the window. All right. So my understanding here is that you just type in whatever name you want for your avatar, and we will explore Habitat together.
What should we be?
I don't know if there's a cool guy. 68. Oh, I like that. Yeah. He didn't quite make it.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. So Habitat. Can you scoot in a little bit so we can get you on camera too? There we go. Hi, Randy.
Hi.
So, Randy, you are
Internets.
one of the co-authors of the original Habitat and also the project lead of the revival here, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So, so take us back to 1987 on the Commodore 64 at Lucasfilm Games. You, where'd the idea, I guess, come from to do a virtual chat room? Because that is not a thing that existed in 1987.
No, so there weren't any what we now call MMOs or graphic virtual worlds or any of those. Although there have been ideas for them from lots of people. This one came from Chip Morningstar. I was working on a different project at the time called Coronis Rift, which is a first-person graphical shooter. But I had told I was a contractor at Lucasfilm Games, and I really, really wanted to work there. So I told him all about my history of making multi-user games back in high school in the 70s. And Chip heard about this. He had this project called Lucasfilm's Universe. He was putting together a pitch. And he can tell you more about the story when he shows up. But he wanted me on his team. So he hired me to work on his team. He says if I could get Fractals working on an real-time first-person Fractal shooters working on an Apple II.
That being Rescue on Fractalist.
No. That never ported to the Apple II. This is a Coronis Rift.
Oh, sure.
So it was basically the same technology, but it was tanks instead of a flying plane. So he was really impressed with my ability to do something with nothing. Do everything with nothing. He said, I want you to work on this project. And so for the next 3 years, I would work with him on this project, trying to create what we now think of as the first virtual world.
So so we're in now. Brandon Sheffield here is playing. He's pulled up Google Help. Okay.
You didn't have the right window
All right.
selected. There you go.
There it is.
Yeah. All right. So he is a ghost right now. What can he do as a ghost, if anything?
You can move to another place, and you can come down from being a ghost. So what ghosts do is they deal with a problem. You see all these are real people connected from around the world into the same server. On a Commodore 64, this machine has 64K of memory. This is less memory than most modern icons. And we're running the entire simulator there, and we're running all the behavior for all these objects, and we're doing it, rendering a double buffered animation system.
Real quick, sorry to pause your train of thought, but do we know why his joystick's not moving right now?
Because he didn't configure his joystick.
Jeez.
You forgot to save the settings last time.
Okay.
So here, go to joystick settings. Choose your setting.
Yeah.
Choose that pop down and choose Xbox controller. Choose OK. And this was fine. Now wait, before you go over to settings again.
Yeah.
And down at the bottom it says save your settings there. You set it. There you go.
Okay. Cool.
Now the next time he has to log in, it will remember his joystick.
Okay. All right. Brandon has just revised history and done the first ASL in a chat room.
Yeah. I believe that was early in the first alpha test too.
Wait, really? Was
Yeah, no, ASL was there.
So ASL predates Habitat?
So is that you, Keith? Hi, Keith. That looks like Keith. The guy with the big head and the black clothing is if that's you, Keith, was the archivist who kept the videos of Lucasfilm Habitat alive for the last 30 years.
Oh, sure, the ones that are on YouTube right now.
On the internet and on YouTube. Most of those were shot by him. And in fact, that's Keith, and next to him is Stu, the Darth Vader head. They were the guys, probably the biggest contributors to the actual recreation of all these regions, all these realms.
Okay.
So there's the server part, but then there's the data part. And Keith was in charge of the project. I called it the geography team, and Stu was kind of his chief minion. And they created most, we had source files, but they had to be massaged. They weren't completely ready to use.
So yeah, you look like a really nice cat person. So before we get into the revival, let's just kind of go back to because what I'm most interested in is just you guys were inventing something from nothing. This is not a it's not a big deal nowadays to have a virtual chat room with graphical avatars, but that was a brand new concept, and you were talking about how the ghosts addressed a need that you guys saw back then.
Yeah, so we're seeing it now. So what's going to happen is it looks like there are 6 people in this region because I was talking about how much memory we had, so little.
Yeah.
And we only have enough memory for a few avatars. And in fact,
how much was on the Commodore?
64K, of which 10K is dedicated to this buffer, these double buffered screens, and about 16K is the leftover memory from after the code that is used for storing these objects. So as we move from screen to screen, those are dynamically loaded from disk. So we have a dynamic memory management system on a Commodore 64. These are memory management techniques you would not normally see in a video game.
Why, okay, so Commodore 64, obviously not the best machine even at the time for a problem like this.
1 megahertz, right?
Yeah. So, was the decision made just because of how many people owned one?
No. The problem was we got this thing. We wanted people to be able to walk around freely. You have this problem that there's too many people in a space. We have 5 people here, or 6. I can't tell if there's a person hiding back there behind that guy with the blue hair. But the frame rate goes down too low. It was connected at 300 baud originally. Yeah. So most of the listeners won't even know what a baud is. That meant 30 characters per second was going across the wire. Some people could type that fast. That's how fast the network was. And so there's only so much data that can be handled for so many people doing things before the Commodore 64 would fall behind and can't catch up. So it turns out 6 is a very good number for the frame rate, for the number of objects being drawn every frame, not to break up too much. We get down to about 1 frame per second, which is terrible. The data rate kind of converges there. So what the Ghost does is it solves an important problem. The problem is that people want to move through this space, or they want to participate right now. They want to be watching what we're doing. And so I invented this thing called the Ghost. I came up with this idea that what if you were just an observer?
Okay.
So you can't do anything here as an there are 6 people. I see that the 6th person walking now. They can't do anything, but they can watch. They get the streamed messages. So at least the fan-out message only goes one way. There's no one if there are 20 people here. In fact, if you mouse over the Ghost and press F7, we'll see how many people are watching. Because this is going to be
is that the Ghost?
Yeah, that's it. So press F7. It's an Eye of Horus. Chip chose most of the culture. So there are actually 8 people here.
Okay.
And
what's the maximum Ghost?
I don't want to say out loud because I know people will show up and try to break it. It's not infinitely large.
So should we move to another region?
We can if you want to see that avatar looks like it could use a female body shape. If it does, you can walk a couple of regions over. You want to do that while we talk?
Yeah, you want to.
All right, so he's got to stop talking. So
he's got to talk to Keith.
Look at all those beautiful word balloons. Yeah, so the idea was the Ghost. So move left. So point to the left edge of the screen and choose Go. This is the first instance of pie menus in a game that we know of. You hold the button down, and then you select
is that Go?
Four canonical directions to select a menu item.
Right. So it's sort of like a modern first-person shooter. You might switch your weapons with this kind of.
Listeners who actually know the map, we're going to Kelly's. We're going to the back room in Kelly's. So if you want to go there, why don't you turn into a ghost and meet us there? You can get there faster. Or we're going to walk.
Tell Kelly we said what's up.
Kelly's is actually featured in the first video of Habitat.
Okay.
The Habitat promotional video was shot in October 1986.
Is that the one with Steve Arnold in the?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no. It's the one. It's the one with the black and white.
Right in front of his face.
Okay.
So it's the one with the black and white framing of a black and white movie at the front. It's 8 minutes trying to explain what virtual worlds we're going to end up being. We have to explain it for the first time.
Right.
Oh yeah, so they're blocking the door. Try to point on the black part of the door without pointing at the cat head. There you go. Go there. Get out of the way of the door, you guys. Oh wait, this is the wrong place anyway.
Yeah, where are we actually?
Yeah, go left. We're at Randy's Adventure Emporium, named after me. This is where you can buy cool stuff. So if you want to go shopping first, we can go in there. No, just keep going.
Brandon hates shopping, apparently.
Oh, I think we're on the wrong side of town for Kelly's now. I think about it, but we'll see. What's going to take?
Did we just get lost in your world?
I'm too busy talking, man. I love my space. What can I say? You know, anyone on there who knows can be sending us an ESP message right now telling us we're going the wrong way.
Okay, so what was,
We're going some beautiful stuff.
I might be kind of asking you to speak for Chip here a little bit, and I apologize for that, but what was sort of the core goal of Habitat at the time? Was it just to give people a place to hang out and socialize?
It was to make so.
What was the product?
So I grew up as a Dungeons and Dragon player. So I just thought as the opportunity to have the same kind of fun you had with role-playing games. And now we have a whole genre based on this idea. It's not an uncommon idea at the time. People were doing it in text messages. There was places called MUDs, which were text versions of this kind of thing. Lucasfilm's universe, I'll let Chip speak to himself, but it was trying to capture that idea that George Lucas had this wonderful universe. It kind of originally grew out of the Star Wars and planets and kinds of things. Holy moly, this place is crowded. Just keep walking around. Follow the road.
I like that boar's head.
Yeah, it's a pretty sweet head.
Someone's named Scanline. That's great.
Yeah.
Someone's telling us. I just want to
Yeah, go ahead.
point out there's.
What's up?
I was going to take that mic.
Oh, sure.
I just really like that someone's telling us there's nowhere to go in that direction.
Oh, no, that's the
Oh, that's the game itself.
game tells you.
So we actually did go the wrong way.
Yeah, we did. We're going to go around, but we're going to go around. So follow the road this way. No, back towards the front here. So come to the front center, follow the road. We're going to walk around the outside of town, which is a good tour anyway.
I'll let you hold the microphone.
Yeah, okay.
It's probably better than me putting my fist in your face.
So these are the regions. So we actually have almost 2,000 regions now in here. We're just focusing right now on downtown.
Okay.
All of these ones with open doors have interiors, but we're going to keep following the road. So we're going to just check out the fronts. You may recognize this kind of look because it was been featured in a modern TV show called *Halt and Catch Fire*. Are you guys familiar with the Mutiny company and the Mutiny game?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, so if anyone on the internet wants to do a look, you can pull up some pictures of Mutiny's game, and you will see basically a hybrid between Habitat and Maniac Mansion. Keep going.
So they actually they took inspiration from
Yeah.
these games, and okay.
I think it's pretty obvious because it's got avatars, and near the end. So we haven't done anything where we take our heads off, but Habitat customization is heads. You can remove your head at any time
Right.
and replace it with another one. They eventually in Mutiny they also put in chopping off your head, but it's much more graphic and blood spraying out and stuff. But you're going good.
I just got real close.
Yeah, you have to get right to the edge so you can tell the difference between pointing at an object or pointing at the edge.
So you were saying that you really like Dungeons and Dragons, and you wanted
Yeah,
to
so the idea of humans interacting with humans is something I've wanted to work with through computers for my entire career. In fact, my first multiplayer game was a text-based Star Trek game, a combat game called SPB.
I think everyone's first game back then was a Star Trek.
Yeah, but not multiplayer with other people in other high schools.
Sure.
I'd worked up a method with a friend, and we had different high schools get together, Romulans, Klingons, Federation. And yeah, so go ahead and run across there. Keep following Broadway.
To the right.
Yep. We're walking around the outside.
Going that way,
Yeah. So at the bottom we have to twist. So what you have is all these outward-facing regions, and in order to be able to go the other direction, you have to twist around.
They were making it up as they go, Brandon.
Yes, we were.
What's in the arcade?
Actually, chess, checkers, and backgammon, full scale, body scale. There's little robots in there. You push the buttons and it resets the board. And
Oh wow.
I would not visit that arcade in real life.
Should we go in there now?
yeah, no, keep going. You only want to go in the arcade with someone else to actually play. And these are all proof of concept. So if you go into the arcade, what you'll see is a very clumsy way to play a game,
Okay.
which is to have separate pieces laying around in a board that are all, at scale, like, a foot in diameter or 2 foot in diameter at human scale. And you can pick them up and you can put them down. And it's really, really clunky. totally functioning, but it's really
Yeah.
clunky. But we were trying this out. This is the first virtual world. So this is the first virtual economy. We didn't stop at the bank, but you can, put in and take out tokens.
So let me ask really quick. Just
Yeah.
you brought up the economy, and that just brings up what I think is kind of an interesting conversation point, which is that the economy of virtual worlds is something that is always a persistent problem even
it's
now.
always been broken.
Right. So was there actually an economy that affected other users of Habitat?
Yeah. So the first wave of post-Habitat fandom and was a paper Chip and I wrote that we presented at the first cyberspace conference called "The Lessons of Lucasfilm's Habitat." And in that paper, we described numerous problems with the virtual economy. Hey, there's my avatar. That's Randy's avatar. It's on another computer. Just keep going to the left. Now we're going to go around the edge. I'm not going to type back. Yeah, you can't trust anybody. That's right. This guy's read the paper over here. Got a guy over here who's read the paper. And specifically, there were bugs in the economy where, so we have vending machines that sell things, and we have a pawn machine. We're going to walk by the pawn machine shop after we're done here, where you can buy stuff back. Well, the economy was all set in the software and in the data, and there was a couple of data errors where the purchase value was lower than the pawn value.
Okay.
And that created tokens. Sure. One weekend I come back, I had this thing I called the T1 report instead of the M1. I was the operator. I was paying attention to the stuff, and the economy inflated a factor of 10 overnight.
So
and I went,
like
where did that come from?
Overnight, you had an elite class in the world of Habitat.
Yes, in the beta test. And at first, they were resistant to tell me what happened. All right, so this is Kelly's Bar. We're here. You walked all the way around town. Go on into the Kelly's Bar. It's me, the history man. Who is that? You're going to have to tell us your avatar name, history man. Because I'm not driving. Otherwise, I would have pointed you and press F7.
So was that someone watching the stream and figuring out where we were and heading us off?
I told them where we were going.
Yeah,
so
sure.
I said I knew someone we knew would be there if they knew where Kelly's was.
So that paper you guys wrote,
Kelly's.
that is online for people who are interested,
Yes, it's
right?
called The Lessons of Lucasfilm's Habitat. It is in over 200 books that I'm aware of, and it's been assigned at numerous college programs as required reading on the early stuff about, with early lessons from online virtual worlds and online interaction.
And it's just sort of like a full post-mortem of the world, right?
Yeah, so when we presented that at the first CyberConf, we got a standing ovation for our paper because we were the only one who were not telling people what to do. We were telling them what we did wrong. And we did a lot wrong. One of my favorite stories about what we did wrong, there's some stuff we got corrected before. So actually, you want to go to the right.
Yeah, I figured.
Is where we want to go here. But this is a cool place people like to hang out and chat. So to the far right is a exit you can't see.
Okay. I'm just giving
F7?
some props. Who's here?
Yeah, if you press F7, they'll know that you pressed F7 on them. So that protocol was a unmasking protocol I came up with. When you point at someone and say help, it tells you who they are, and it tells them who you are.
I see.
At the same time. So it's a fun way to identify yourself to people with a single key click.
But they can't slyly try to peek under your mask.
No,
they will know.
You got it perfectly. That's why I came up with it. I didn't like the idea of people F7ing you and then you not knowing.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of experiments.
You gotta have it close to your mouth.
Oh, I didn't like the idea of people peeking underneath masks. All right, so go to that machine, choose go on that big thing, and then press F7 too while you're on the way. You'll probably now you can do it. There it says. It's called Change Machine. Select Do for a change. So once you get there, choose Do on the machine. You'll notice that it lines up kind of with your avatar's face. You got a face mask, and you choose Do. I don't know if they can hear the sounds from the computer or not. Bam! You are changed.
Nice.
Walk around. I think it might go better with that head. I don't know. Some people might think so.
Oh, is that a new body?
Yeah, you got a new body. You got a body change. This is only 2 body types. Actually, the truth is, there's some secret body types. We don't have the. I don't know if anyone. You'd have to go in the magic shop and see if any of the people slipped in a magic wand that lets you change to non-human avatars.
So, all right. So, let's jump ahead a little bit. I mean, this thing you put it together. It came out in beta form as Habitat, right? And back then, was Lucasfilm seeking a publisher, or were they self-publishing?
No, part of that deal with Lucasfilm Universe that I was talking about, Chip was asked to produce a proposal for a company, Quantum Link, which we now know as America Online. They wanted to do a partnership with George Lucas because he was making these movies called Star Wars, which were the changing everything about fantasy.
I'm sorry. What was the name of the movie?
Star Wars.
Okay.
Yeah. And so part of Chip's preparing that was, here's a cool thing we could do with a multi-user service. So from the beginning, actually, Quantum Link was a partner. Pretty quick on. There was a long time getting contracts ready and stuff, but the truth is money was coming in and they were paying for us to develop it. It's been 3 years. We spent 3 years. This should never have happened. The reason it does the impossible is because we had just about forever to do the impossible.
Well, which was commonplace at Lucasfilm Games back then, right? I mean, you guys
it was not common in the industry.
Right, no, and it never was anywhere but Lucasfilm as far as I know, or maybe, I don't know, Nintendo, I have no idea. But, like, you guys, didn't really have to adhere to, like, deadlines, or it's just...
Well, I'm not going to...
Sure.
I'm embarrassed that it took 3 years. But we were doing the impossible. We just didn't know it at the time. So, yeah, go ahead and drive around now. You find what you want. So I'm going to stop looking at him and answer your question.
So, all right. So, what was the deal with
Quantum Link? So it was going
great,
and eventually we burned a lot of money. It turns out it does have a bunch more capacity needs over a simple chat route.
Yeah.
We are sending a lot of messages back and forth. Every time you click a command, we're sending a message to reposition your avatar to face it, and then walk that way.
Well, and other users are seeing the full animations that you're seeing.
And they're being fanned out, and fan-outs are always the expensive thing back then. That was part of the problem. Another one is, and this is so hard to explain, the reason there's an 8-minute video, which is now practically boring, about Habitat, explaining what it is no one had seen one like it before.
Right.
And no one had tried to mass market anything like it before. And they literally said they could not explain Habitat in less than 25 words or less. So they didn't understand it.
Is this Quantum Link?
Quantum Link, yes. They'll tell you. They didn't understand it. They didn't know how to talk about it. Now we say virtual world or MMO, right? These are now terms which were undefined then.
Right. There wasn't really a graphical internet even.
No, right. None of these expressions existed. So it was difficult to understand and market. So they shut it down, the beta down, but they came back and said, we did invest a lot in this, and we could re-release it. And they decided to throw away the world, throw away all the monsters. You're seeing weird monster heads and stuff.
Yeah.
And gender, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's kind of fantastic amongst what we're looking at here. We haven't even grabbed guns and magic wands yet.
There are guns?
There are guns, yeah, and magic wands. And, he's just got to find himself in the right store. And we haven't gone out of town where it's dangerous. You can actually get shot out in the woods. But
you should go to the woods and get shot.
I will. we should talk about the restoration.
This is the palm machine. But anyway, let me finish the quick story about Club Creep, because it's gonna close something that's important. So they come back and they say, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take over the world. We're gonna design our own world. It's gonna be based on the clubbing, the Mediterranean clubs thing. We're gonna call it Club Carib.
Mm-hmm.
And so they create their own little beach regions and a bunch of other things. So there's no hat cool girl hat cat head or that flathead guy. It's just all the fantasy stuff's been stripped out.
What did you guys think of that decision?
Well, so I had a name for it. I called it Club Metaphor.
You're gonna have to explain that one to me. It went right over my head.
Well, Club Metaphor.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, because it was based on the Club Metaphor.
Sure.
And they're calling it Club Carib. So I patched the exact same disc by just changing the cover screen and the copyright date.
Yeah.
And gave that back to them so that they could run the service. And then Chip and I went on to do other things together where we would start writing more and more multi-user servers for our whole careers. But I'm not going to talk about my whole career. We're just talking about this. So Club Carib would run until 1994, 1988 to 1994.
Yeah.
But the data is exactly the same. And the reason that's important is so that we can run this today.
Well, okay.
We can't rebuild. We couldn't till today. We couldn't rebuild the data disks for this.
Right.
So we're using the original stuff. We've managed to replace the screen, so it says Habitat again. But other than that, the data is exactly the same as it was 30 years ago.
That's what I'm confused by. So, but we are seeing the fantastical elements.
Yes, that's all controlled by the server because.
Oh, I see.
Because the resources are all stored on the floppy disk.
So the Club Carib disk would ship with all that
everything
stuff,
on it. They just had it turned off on the server.
Just never call it. I see.
Yeah, and what I heard is from the people who played that eventually For example, if you know Maniac Mansion, one of the
I do.
one of the things you could be is a tentacle avatar.
Okay.
We stole a bunch of the graphics from a lot of the other Lucasfilm games in development and just slapped them in as possible avatar bodies.
Well, I mean, it's the same artist, right? It's Gary Winnick.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same editor. So Eric Wilmunder's not here, but he provided the technology related to all the rendering and all the playback of the rendering, and so we just slipped that stuff in there for fun. But you can now see screenshots from some of those archivists where they are running around with dragon bodies from Eidolon and tentacle bodies. So they eventually turned all that stuff on. So they were able to get a bunch of expansions by only just putting stuff back in on the server.
So we're kind of transitioning. It sounds like into the restoration of this.
Exactly.
I think that's a good turning point for the conversation. So. I seem to remember that the Maid getting involved in restoring this game, gosh, like 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Is Alex standing around here? Yeah, Alex is over here. You want to step over real quick and tell us your part of the story in the restoration? I'm going to step aside.
Oh, sure. So, I mean, okay. So, yeah, why don't you sit down for a second? Yeah.
No, that entire 2 liter is yours.
Off to get soda.
Look at that.
And there's pizza. What'd you do?
I just got soda.
Oh, nice.
I just picked up a bottle.
Who was I talking about? Was it Brandon? Was it Randy? What I was asking Randy is I just want to go back in time to the start of actually restoring this thing. And the Maid got involved in that. I want to, my memory says 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know if that's real.
Yeah, 2013, right? That was the Lucasfilm postmortem at GDC.
4 years ago,
Yeah, so 4 years ago. At the time, I was working with Simon Carlis. Big shout out to Simon Carlis. Everybody loves Simon. Simon's great. We was working with Simon, and we were talking about what the postmortems would be at GDC that year, and he said it was Zork and Lucasfilm. And, Lucasfilm, I don't want to say, there's nothing to, talk about there that hasn't been told, but there's a lot of documentation. People love those games, right? So I was looking for something that we could do that maybe hadn't been done before or hadn't been shown. The Free SCI guys have really, or not Free SCI, the Scum VM guys have really, preserved that world, but what was left? So I thought about Habitat, and I contacted Chip, and Chip sent me the frickin' source code, which never happens, as you know.
I do know.
Yes. Usually you have to be like Frank and run around for 4 or 5 years and go to North Dakota. But when Chip sent me the source code, I was like, oh my God, I have to do something with this. And Chip said, oh, you poor child. No. You're not going to do anything with this. And I took that as a challenge because I have a history with old computers. And this project required a lot of old computer stuff. And in particular, the server side, the Stratus VOS stuff.
Well, you tracked down one of the Stratus servers that originally ran Habitat, right?
Yeah, so when people tell you something can't be done, it's just because they haven't Googled enough. I found the FTP site on Stratus's, it was ftp.stratus.com, and it has this page from 1993, the smiling picture of Paul Green. We love Paul Green. Big shout out to Paul Green. And it said, I'm the guy who runs his FTP. Email me. So I emailed him and told him about it, and he was like, that's the coolest thing ever. And within a month, he had sent us a pallet that we couldn't even get in the door at the old space. It was too big. It was multiple terminals, working and broken, RS-232 cables, all the stuff we needed. It was basically... It was this incredible donation of stuff that nobody in the world had. In fact, I had to contact the Computer History Museum afterwards and say, hey, did you guys get any Stratus stuff? And they said, whoa, no, we didn't. And I don't know if you know anything about the Computer History Museum, but they have a big list on their site of maybe 20 things they want. They have everything. Yeah. So finding something they did not have and hadn't even thought about was ridiculous. And they now have lots of Stratus stuff. They sent them more pallets. But that sort of kicked us in the butt and got us going, right? If we get the original hardware, I was informed we would never have hardware, we would never have software to run it. It just was not possible. So once we got the hardware, it was oh my God. Then the next, we did a hackathon, and Chip and Randy ran the whole thing. It was wonderful. But the trick was that we didn't.
Back up.
Okay.
So you're okay, we're gonna fix this, and you actually convinced Chip and Randy that it's gonna happen, and they should come in and help.
Yeah, I never really thought about how crazy that is that they decided to help, but. I mean, when you think about it, this whole thing has just been so that the future generations can enjoy this, right? It's preservation work that I think we can all sort of relate to, if maybe not engage with in maybe the way that people engage with things like, normal museums and Air and Space Museum or so forth, but it's still worthy of preserving, and it's their legacy. They were so far ahead of their time, the two of them. So anyway, we did the hackathon, and we discovered we were missing some libraries from Q-Link, which belonged to AOL. And so we went to AOL and asked them for the Q-Link libraries. I cold called their director of legal, and they started moving on it. And they apparently were going to open source all of these old libraries from Q-Link. They pulled them off of the old disks, everything. They had their last Stratus VOS admin, like his last job in the last month of working there was to pull this stuff off. Unfortunately, it's all vanished. I have replied to them a dozen times since then, and it's just gone. It's completely gone. I don't know what's going on. So, but that's the next step. We'll try to. Well, I'm not done. I'm still going to try to get stuff. My whole thing is I just find people and bother them. Randy and Chip actually do the work, right? Steve over there is actually doing all the work of like serving this stuff. Randy's doing actually the work of project managing and being lead developer on this thing, you know. And Chip is being Mr. Guru, who, if nothing else works, go to Chip, right? Chip knows everything. My whole thing has just been gathering people, contacting people, cold calling directors of legal departments at Fujitsu and AOL. You know, it's really I really haven't done that much work. It's all been Chip and Randy and the developers, right? It's an amazing amount of work they've done on this.
Well, and it's, you know, it's something I get asked about a lot. Oh yes, hi.
Well, without it, none of it would have happened.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. You know,
Wait a second. Didn't I have to do some translation on a mail to Fujitsu?
yes.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I had you double check Wolf, I believe.
So Fujitsu, we didn't even get into that, but Fujitsu is Randy. You might want to come back and fill us in for a second on this. You guys want to trade the spots? Yeah. Thank you very much for that. Right. So Fujitsu, really quick. Fujitsu is who ended up with the license after Q-Link sold it, right?
No, actually, that's part of why this was a challenge for the Maid. So what happened is, Chip and I, at the end of its life, 1988, during that period when it's going to be Club Carib,
Yeah.
Fujitsu got really excited because they had a new computer they're coming out with called the FM Towns. And it's one of those 97, I don't remember that age, there was a 97% IBM compatible, which they quickly came to learn the next year meant 0% compatible.
I have an FM Towns Marty shirt. I should have worn it.
Sweet.
I have an FM Towns Marty.
Nice.
Okay,
I did
so
not know that.
so they were looking for an awesome killer app, and the idea of Japan's first virtual world, or what they would call it,
Yeah.
I believe they actually called it virtual world before anyone else. Really excited Fujitsu, so they bought a license to port it to the FM Towns in 1988. Chip and I did a technical seminar. The documentation's for that. You can read the whole document. It is online as part of the open source project, and it is linked to by the Neo Habitat page.
So when restoring this game, what did you guys need from Fujitsu?
So here's what happened. They only got that license, and what happens a couple years later, we do Worlds Away, or Fujitsu wants to do it again, but they want to do it in the United States.
Okay.
And that means they need the United States rights. So Chip and I worked with them as advisors to get them to buy the rights from Lucasfilm.
Okay.
So they bought the rights outright from Lucasfilm. They could buy all of it except for the AOL code. It was the Quantum Link code then.
Sure.
But by then, AOL has already been the rename. And so they bought all the rights for everything except the AOL code. That meant Fujitsu had them. And so when Alex went looking, he first asked Lucasfilm, and Lucasfilm said, well, or the people who were at Lucasfilm said, they don't have it anymore. Fujitsu has it. So that turns out to be really good because Fujitsu is a little less worried about what's going to happen to the original habitat in the United States.
Sure.
And I got to give a lot of credit to the Maid for figuring out how to navigate that because it's a subtle case. The Japanese social culture for business is different than American, and maybe Americans are a little more, I got to keep this in case someday.
Yeah, I mean, as someone involved in well, to an extent, video game restoration, but preservation more so. I think it's sort of a mixture of social engineering and software engineering, and I haven't figured out which one is harder yet.
Yeah. In the case of AOL, it's really interesting because Steve Case had a profound effect on when I was talking earlier about the metaphors, the things we did wrong and did right. Some of the things we did wrong we learned from Steve Case, and he was a big fan of the project. we've met several times off and on over the years during our careers. And when we told him that we were looking for the AOL code for recovering it, he was all for it, but he's no longer executive at America Online.
Okay.
But I asked him to retweet that we wanted it, and he did. You know, kind of everyone who was involved with the project thought it would be a great idea.
Yeah.
But legal departments in America are legal departments in America. So that's part of the reason we have a new platform. So I waited a couple years after the part. I'll pick up the story where Alex left it. We had the big meeting 2.5 years ago where we're going to try to reboot it. We realized we don't have the AOL part. We need that. They start an effort. I start 2 years of being very frustrated that nothing is going to happen.
Sure.
During this period, this 30-year period between them, Chip and I have rewritten this technology 8 or 9 times, depending upon how you count.
For other projects.
For other projects.
Yeah.
We founded several companies on multi-user gaming platforms. Sometimes as a business platform, sometimes as a gaming platform. Most recently as a mobile gaming platform. And the last one we'd open sourced. Just right around the same time, a little after the get-together. So beginning of this year, my current contract had ended, and I went, I have some time on my hands. I'm tired of waiting. Let's just go ahead and port the PL1 code for the game logic on top of our platform that we've been evolving for 30 years. It is a direct descendant of the Habitat platform, so it should fit pretty well.
So and that was necessary because you didn't have access to the original AOL.
Well, even if we had the original code, it only ran on a Stratus computer.
Sure.
Yeah. There's no emulator.
Well,
There's no emulator.
you
so
could write one now.
yeah, so you've got this problem, which is you
Yeah.
could have a thing that would work, and it would stop working the day the Stratus machine stopped working.
Right.
And no one's ever going to write an emulator for it. Or you could write it on top of modern hardware.
Sure.
One of the cool things about putting it on top of this open source platform, building an open source version of the game on top of the open source platform, is guess what? Every one of our contributors who did any development whatsoever runs his own server.
Yeah.
And not only that, he runs it like he tilts up a Vagrant instance or a Docker instance, and he pushes a button, and he's got a server.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically running in JavaScript, you said,
Well,
right?
it's Java, and a little bit of JavaScript.
Java, sorry.
Mostly Java, yeah. So yeah, it's just a Java server, running in some kind of container. But I run mine on my machine with no container, and some JavaScript for the middle layer to because we are in the as Chip and I rewrote the servers. One of the things we did, along with Doug Crockford, is we invented the JSON protocol. Because we were getting tired of writing binary data back and forth between these servers, and we wanted to have a method that would work with web browsers. So we, at a company called State Software, when we were writing one of these servers, we invented JSON. I wrote the first, what you call the proto-Node.js. I added com and file IO to a SpiderMonkey, which is the name of a JavaScript interpreter. It was available in the day. Oh, so he's been stealing the bottles from the front of the store. You meanie?
Randy, do you want to go through a list of the technologies that you created along the way on this? There's quite a few that we use today.
There is. For those who are really, really interested, if you look at the Twitch company speaker archives, I gave a talk, an hour-long talk about how technology was changed as a result of Habitat. But also things like futures and promises are part of the history of this stuff. You'll see even in Habitat, scarce object economy, virtual currency, observer mode, which is ours, Ghost.
Yeah.
The number of innovations that we got right is actually very, very large for a first system.
Yeah.
We got a lot of things wrong, like I was mentioning earlier about Steve Case. One of the things he pointed out, we had this problem with what I call the tyranny of the metaphor, where the original model had mailboxes that were functional, and the way you would access your mail is you go up to your mailbox and you'd access an interface, and it worked like Unix mail.
Yeah.
That was a terrible idea. But another one that was particularly bad is, you see the telephone in this store here? That is vestigial. That was originally a working class. It was going to be a working class. You were supposed to get telephone calls. 1984 or in 85, when we're defining this, there is no cell phone. There's no idea of a cell phone.
Yeah.
The closest thing is a Star Trek communicator, and that just seems way too science fiction-y. So
Yeah,
Chip,
you're a
Chip,
few years from like
Chip
the car
had
phones,
we had
yeah.
turfs from the very beginning. So we are the first virtual multi-user game that has personal places. If we go to a teleport booth right now and you type in home after you would charge it, you will get taken to this avatar's personal home,
Yeah.
which they have complete control over. Well, limited for Habitat, but this would become an optional feature in most games. For us, it was built in from day one.
Right.
Part of the reason was we had phones, and that's where you would get phone calls. So when you wanted to send a message to another person, you'd call them on their phone. It was, I know it sounds really absurd. Steve Case is the one who said, no, we don't do that online. We send a personal message, a PM. And it said, you have to deal with that. And at first we were kind of a little resistant. Oh, no, it's like reality. And now this is a thing I've learned to reject as a defense at all times. If it's more like reality, it's probably a bad interface. In fact, what we do is ESP instead. If you just type 2: and the name of an avatar, it enters a modal communications channel, private from you to that person.
Right.
And it's easy, and you're just PMing one message after a message until you press a blank line, and then you're out.
And it's funny because, like, you know, nowadays we know that it's not weird that you can just talk to someone somewhere else, but back then you almost had to, like, come up with a reason within the lore of the world why you're able to do it, and that's ESP.
Yeah, that's why we didn't say PM, we said ESP.
Yeah.
We said, okay, we're going to keep the metaphor a little bit, but now we're going to go a little fantastic. But the truth is, if we'd just been a decade later, everyone would just have a cell phone, and it would be fine. Right? It would have been, you know, advanced-ish in the early 1990s, but at least we would have had a vision of what that future was going to be like. And so, honestly, to tell the truth, AOL actually had a good idea what cell phones were going to work like. Or Quantum Link, yeah.
So,
Wildcats happening on this version?
Hoods? The woods? Yeah, the woods. Yeah.
Dangerous areas.
Oh, yeah. You
Yeah.
want to see?
you want to see a dangerous area? Okay.
All right, we're going to the woods, everybody. Okay. Those who know what to do should go to the woods.
Are guns part of this version?
Yes. Do you want to get a gun before we go to the woods? All right, let's see. Where's the guns? I think the guns are...
I want to end the stream with Brandon dying.
yeah, well, that's probably going to happen. So let's go to the left here and go to the general store. I think there's a gun in the general store.
There's no guns in the pawn shop?
No, the pawn shop here only buys stuff back. That machine, if you put something in it, will tell you how much it's worth, and you can just say do, and it'll flush it and give you the money.
I see.
So we had a recycling economy.
Put it right up in your...
Oh, sorry. We had a recycling economy. You can just put items right into the recycling bin, and then push a button, and money came out and destroyed the object from the database.
So really quick. So I mean, just on the subject of danger and people hurting each other and stuff. What were the emergent behaviors that you guys observed in people that surprised you when you launched this?
So the good news is I've written several papers about that. First one is the lessons of Lucasfilm's Habitat. The other one is known as Habitat Anecdotes, and you can also find links to that. So keep following the road until you get to the general store.
So go down to the middle, right?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Sure, you can get that. Put it in your pocket so you don't have to carry it around. If you do, you can see what's on it. What is it? Let's see what it is. It's a document, and what's on the document? It is... Oh, this is funny. This is the actual first copy of the very first virtual newspaper in the very first virtual world, the Weekly Rant, 1986, written by Chip Morningstar. It actually has quite a few pages if you want to flip through them by clicking on
Did this ship on the disk?
No, this is on the database.
Okay.
Yeah, and I found it in a document, so I restored it with this. But it tells you what to do, and it's a very accurate description of what our intention was at the time. In the real game, we actually had someone who published I don't remember if it was a weekly or bi-weekly issue of new stuff relating to stuff that was going on in the game. Yeah. So we were meant to prime a user business in producing the paper.
So anyway, you were saying the emergent behaviors.
Oh, so Habitat Anecdotes contains a bunch of them as well.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe. All of them sound trite by modern emergent behavior standards.
Right, but that's what's funny to me about this. You know, it's like, yeah.
Well, Church of the Holy Walnut was one. We had a guy. So we didn't know what these kind of games were going to be like. So we have guns, and we have magic, and we have all this crap. And it doesn't really work together well. So in modern parlance, we have PvE, but we don't have PvP. I mean, we have PvP, but no PvE. You can go shoot other people but there's nothing else to shoot. It's not like hunting any monsters for hit points.
There's no NPCs.
Right. There's no NPCs. It's only PCs. So we don't understand all of those things yet. So because I'm a role-playing guy, I want to put hit points. So I give our avatars hit points. They have 255 hit points. Then we create weapons to remove hit points, and then we create really onerous rules for what happens if you die. And I'm not going to tell you what they are in case we die, so it's much more interesting to share on the feed.
You're going down to the... Oh, right.
Yeah, so he's too busy having fun. You can always just drop that, too. Just put it on the ground, actually. Just choose do on the ground, you'll throw it there. Oh, so do is faster because it throws it. keep following the road. I think there's only one more place to get to the general store, one or two.
Okay, so yeah, so people could die, right?
Yeah, so there was a lot of debate during the beta test on what kind of game it should be. Originally, we didn't have weapons-free zones. We just were like throwing everything into the kitchen sink and seeing what's happened during the test. But there was definitely an early contingent who said, I don't want to lose my stuff. I want to have a safe place where I can interact socially and not be a danger of losing my crap.
So like not even their homes were safe?
I don't remember.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Could you go into someone's home and murder?
Well, no. You couldn't go into there. But home, it's really early, so everything is really crudely implemented.
Sure.
But you could control who could come in your home, so that's kind of the way you control that. But
so where should he go from here, by the way?
So just keep going along the road.
To the left?
Yep.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out what that person had, but they left too fast.
Yeah. Sometimes they're just blowing on. They had a weird thing. Oh, I didn't see it. Sorry. Yeah. So the Church of Holy Walnut was actually a real life priest who was adamantly campaigning for things related to peaceful interaction between avatars.
Sorry, just speaking of peaceful reactions between avatars, in the chat here we got somebody saying, "Hey, someone's stealing aquariums out of people's houses,"
Yes.
and then down in the chat someone's like, "Ha, was that aquarium I took? Was that your aquarium I took? Sorry." So there you go.
Yeah, aquariums used to not be portable. I made them portable. I think it was a mistake. The general store, go in there. There's stuff to buy in there.
They said in the chat that it's at Randy's.
Oh, I don't own an aquarium. My house doesn't have an aquarium. So.
Oh no, is there a place called Randy's?
Oh, Randy's Emporium. Yeah.
You were there at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. So that's where the guns are? All right, so go in here anyway. We'll see what's in here. Wow, wait, did you get turned into a ghost? No, you're here somewhere. This region
waiting,
is
right?
busy. Yeah, so what you're seeing is how slow the frame rate drops when there are 6 people in a region. I did not expect this. I'm amazed at how many people have shown up for. I'm very excited. Thank you, everyone on the stream, for joining. At how many people have shown up here. This
So
is
can
way
more
more
than
than I
one-
could have expected. Huh?
More than one avatar animate at the same time?
Yes. Yeah. So when you're moving from region to region, it makes you wait until they leave,
I see.
because we don't want you interacting with them after the server thinks they're already gone.
That makes sense. Sure.
It turns you need to synchronize a lot of things when you're doing this. You learn a lot of rules, and one of the reasons it takes a long time is there's a lot of rules about when you can send commands when and what the server can do with them.
Okay, so you had a contingency of people who didn't want to lose things.
Yeah. So and then we had people who just thought it was a game.
Right,
So
and then you had the Church of the.
the Church of the Holy Walnut. So we actually had a region called the Church of the Holy Walnut, and this priest kind of moved in, and so we gave him the keys to the place, and he actually had little services and stuff. We also had a sheriff. We tried all kinds of things.
So someone wanted to role play as a real life priest wanted to continue role playing as
He
a
wanted
priest.
to play a peacemaker role
I see.
in the game. So there was this early confusion about the difference between your virtual role and your real role. All that stuff starts there, and it had started in text-based ones as well before. So there was, I'm sorry, it's noisy.
It is getting busy.
It's really busy in here and really busy out here. So I'll just point people to those things. They're really easy reads.
Yeah.
The Lessons of Lucasfilm's Habitat and Habitat Anecdotes are papers that are available online that really describe interesting behaviors. My favorite thing was tracking how people evolved from when they first started using the product, became regular users, and they would promote themselves up. They would kind of start becoming takers. So those people who inflated the economy I mentioned earlier ended up being. All right, so just reboot.
So we already saved the settings. So just close it.
Yeah, so you just close. We're going to reboot that. And just. You should be good, and go ahead and blow that up. It is alpha. Actually, in the meantime between failure, giving all this interaction is really impressive for me. It might look really buggy to y'all on the internet, but it's not buggy compared to what the first alpha was, let me tell you.
How long would you say the game's been like really stable? Like, did it just kind of all come together in the last few weeks?
So the front end's exactly the same as it always was, the client.
Yeah, sure.
And the back end has been stable actually for a lot of months, but we keep adding major stuff. So recently, the most recent stuff is the ghost management. And so if people ignore that thing that says, please wait for your avatar to appear, you will have trouble. And we've seen today some problems related to boxes and containers. So I'll look those up later. But I went from a complete panic on Monday that we're not going to be ready to quite calm and happy with how it's behaving. I'm really proud of the team. We did great.
So we're getting close to the end of our hour here. So what should we do in the last few minutes? Should we go to the woods?
Walk out of town.
All right.
Let's walk out of town.
So we're going to go to the danger zone.
Yeah, so we can go out there without a weapon. Don't worry about it. You're just going to die. Are you prepared to die?
Brandon is prepared to die in case anyone.
All right, so I'll guide you out, and you'll take the quick way out. Actually, I know a quick way out using teleports, and we haven't demonstrated a teleport yet, so we're going to do a teleport. So one of the cool things, when you come into a region, so F7 is the help key for everybody out there. You can point at anything, press F7 if you're an avatar, and you can get a message back. If you point at the ground, it'll always, unless it's a place you're supposed to get lost, like the woods, it'll always tell you which way to the nearest teleport and which way to the nearest town. So it's got little arrows, so you can just follow the arrows to navigate your way around, so you don't have to get lost. Even if you feel lost, if you just want to get back to a safe zone, just follow the arrows. If you're someplace where there are no arrows, you are lost. That's a feature. Again, like we were trying to figure everything out. Is this an orienteering thing? Is this a combat game? Is this a social game? What is it? Because
it's really interesting to me that, you kind of left these things in an experimental state, but then they took that experimental state and published a commercial product out of it?
There's 21 online. That's sweet. All right, so travel isn't a ghost for now. So go straight down. I know where you are. You're actually the far north of town. You just head straight down. I think you'll see a teleport right underneath you. It'll be really good go. Why aren't you moving? Oh, we were waiting for someone to arrive. So one of the things that's different now, and I'm thinking about changing this, is in the original game, you actually got a lot of cues from listening to the disk drive. So the disk drive would grind whenever you were loading objects. Okay. So for example, you would have been stuck, but you would have heard as Keith's avatar was loading off of your disk, and so you would have known someone was coming in. So there were these audio cues having to do with the physical disk that were telling you what was going on with the software.
And were you guys, were you of the mindset that, neat.
So this is what it looks like when something doesn't load completely. So put that paper down, will you? We're going to teleport out of here anyway, I think. Yeah, that's... Oh, you're a ghost. So press... you know what? Let's leave. Go down 2 more regions.
Just get out of here.
Get out of this one.
This place isn't right.
There's something wrong with that spot. I'm afraid it's because you're holding that sheet of paper. I'm tracking a bug, and it might have to do with books.
That's not him.
Oh, him, because he was holding a piece of paper. Yeah, it wasn't you. Yeah.
So was that almost a design decision to not have to message people because they were hearing the disc?
No, that was it was
just a happy side effect.
Well, yeah. Given that you were waiting, having some feedback turned out to be good. So we can turn that on in the emulator. I'm going to do that. So just go ahead and be not a ghost. F1.
Do you want to say, I don't know if you want to say this, but do you want to say how many people can be on this game at once at this point?
I have no idea. We hit the record just now. The
modern day record.
The modern day record. Oh yeah, there was hundreds before. Go ahead and grab from your body, not your head, because if you grab your head, you'll take your head off. Do a get. We're going to show up teleport before we leave.
Okay.
And then point at the flickering cone. So what's going on is it's got to load that stuff from disk. Only once when you're in a region. If you do it again, it'll be much faster because it's caching that all in your memory. So go ahead and do a put. No way. And you're going to put some money in the teleport booth. Is the audio from this going through to the...
in theory, but we don't know.
All right. Because this is some beautiful sound effects associated with teleporting. All right. So now you've activated teleport. Whatever you type in is going to be an address. I'm going to tell you an address. And away we go. Type in hyperdrive. Oh, your application is not selected. Type hyperdrive. Press enter. We're going to go to the outer part of the suburbs, which is pretty close to where we want to be. But I just wanted to show teleport working.
So just before we wrap up with Brandon's untimely demise, so just a couple other things I wanted to point out. Yeah. This is running. I mean, I'm looking at it right now on an actual Commodore 64 as well, right?
Yes.
You're interfacing a Commodore 64 with your new server architecture on
That's correct.
on some modern hardware. Was
All the same.
yeah. So was that? I mean, was anything extra involved in that, or was it just like no, it just works?
No, it just works.
That's great.
So we're using the exact same binaries. I literally brought in today Commodore 64 discs with Club Carib front and back. It's the same software.
Right, which you thought you had misplaced, but you found.
Yeah, I found
you
them
found
today.
of all day.
Yeah, so we got one of our guys show up and he says, "I finally know how to make a disc." And I go, "Oh my gosh, we've been waiting 6 months for a way to make a disc." And then I go get prepared to come to this event today, and I find a box of discs.
Which might work, might not.
We'll find.
One of them.
Let's see. We're watching. We'll watch over there. See what's going on. Steve has been actually working for days. We've been at numerous events. GDC. He spent the entire part of GDC trying to keep going up. Keep trying to get it working on the Commodore 64. Commodore 64 has really slow disk drives and it's physical medium, and the medium is. I handed him a disk that's 30 years old.
Right.
Literally. And so, not 100% sure it's going to work. All right. So go to the right. Follow the road to the right. And we at least want to see one screen. And I don't think we might get. If people on the list, who are playing, they should be waiting for us in ambush. So if not, we'll just keep running and maybe they won't catch us. So notice that it says Populopolis, theft/weapon free zone.
Okay, and that wasn't in the early versions you were
No,
saying.
it
right?
was. Well, in the very first versions, but we did implement it during the beta. Keep going right. I believe we'll see a really interesting sign coming up, if I'm not mistaken. So we are now in an unsafe zone, but there's a especially cool sign that was recovered from video.
Oh, cool. From
Yeah, it's from Keith's video.
from Keith. Yeah.
That's just a little rock.
Oh, there's someone
it's
chasing you.
yeah, someone's chasing us. Did you see him? He popped up in the last frame there. I don't know if he made it out to the stream. Keep going, because he's gonna catch you. Beware the guns.
That
Beware the
person
guns.
looked like they had a gun. Yeah.
Did they have it in their
I
hand?
don't know.
Somebody might defend us.
That's so.
Oh, Chip Morningstar is
Hi,
here. So they were chasing him into the woods. Here, Chip. You can share that. Interview's almost over, so come have a seat.
Oh man, I'm gonna get wrecked.
Well, where are we going?
I don't know.
I don't know. Randy left. Hi, Chip.
Hi.
Are you familiar with the regions enough? We're trying to get lost and die. Okay.
I have no idea. All of that is faded from memory if I ever knew.
So Chip, the whole habitat thing. Well, what'd you just do? Oh, nice.
I've got 5,100 tokens.
Sure. So the initial habitat concept was kind of your baby, right?
Yes.
So have you been observing the? Well, you've been at least a little bit involved in getting
yes,
it.
I've been. I mean, Randy has been doing the 99% of the work as far as between him and me. I'm the author of the server framework that our resurrection is based on, and of course, building this out has turned up various little bugs and other minor issues that I've been jumping on whenever Randy, I get a frantic Skype call from Randy saying, "Oh no, we gotta fix container ship is broken or some other thing," and we'll go in and we'll take care of that. But fortunately, it's mostly been up to the task, and so I haven't had to do very much work for this at all. I've just been sitting back in dumbfounded astonishment at all of the volunteers who've come out of the woodwork and devoted an amazing amount of effort in particular getting the world itself resurrected, rebuilding the world database, rebuilding a lot of the supporting materials, setting up the operations infrastructure to actually run the servers, doing all of that stuff. It's been amazing.
So I'm gonna hit you right with a pretty deep question. Why do this? Why bring Habitat back?
Yeah, that's a deep question, all right. Well, I mean, there's a part of it is, it's because we can. Part of it is there is right now there seems to be an immense amount of interest in sort of the roots of the video game industry. There's a lot of people doing retro computing things, emulators, all of that kind of stuff. And sort of just as part of the whole historical reconstruction process that's all wrapped up in, this is the first major online game from that era. And being able to show people what that experience is like. Plus, it's sufficiently, and we have the rights now to publish all the source code, so people can see how it all worked on the inside. There's also an educational function, I think, because we were doing this in a Commodore 64, it's small enough and simple enough that one person can understand it all. So if you're an aspiring developer of online games or MMOs or something like that, and you kind of want to dip your toe in the water, here's a code base that you can study, that you can take apart, you can tinker with.
That only talks to like a Commodore 64, which itself is a simple machine that you can understand.
So it's small enough and simple enough that you can wrap your head around it. You can understand kind of the essentials of what it is without having to master all of the other, many complications in a more modern technology stack. Yeah. The actual server framework that we built this on actually is a modern server framework. But it's a server framework which is about the 9th generation descendant of the original Habitat server. So this is sort of the sweet spot for what it can do. And the original Habitat server code, which was all written in PL1, has been ported to Java with kind of a meatball coding approach that's pretty rough and ready, pretty quick and dirty, but it basically worked. But the underlying server engine itself is really robust, really scalable, and really awesome. And this is, I think, the first thing that we've done with it that kind of shows that off.
And it's totally open or going to be.
Totally open source. It's on GitHub. This framework is called Elko. The Neo Habitat project itself is on GitHub. The original Habitat sources are archived on GitHub in a repository belonging to the MAID, the museum, and also all of that material is available.
Well, I got to say that you guys have collectively really upped the ante on what it means to preserve an online game, which is, I run a nonprofit myself to preserve video game history, and this is something I get asked about constantly, is how do you preserve an online game? And my answer is always, you document the time that it was alive, but you guys have actually reconstructed a working copy.
There's kind of, I think there's potentially two different projects here. One is reconstructing the historical habitat, which ideally we would have just liked to be able to use the original PL1 sources for the server in the original machine that they ran on. But there was a bunch of pieces that we were missing to do that, so we had to reconstruct it ourselves. And that can deliver the experience of Habitat as it was. There's also, I think, an opportunity to deliver the Habitat that everybody remembers, which is sort of the pixelated Commodore 64 graphics, but you could take advantage of modern networking technology, better bandwidth, bigger storage, break out of some of the limitations of the systems that it was implemented in, but keep the sort of spirit of it, and perhaps build a more extensible environment that would just be a kind of a cooperative thing for people to just keep building on as long as they're interested in doing that. I don't think that's really happening yet. I think people have been so focused on getting Habitat reconstructed that that's just been, people have been blinders on for that.
Do you feel that products like Second Life were a natural extension of what you guys were doing back then?
Oh yeah, I mean you talk to those guys and they'll tell you. The thing that a lot of virtual world systems have suffered from, I think, is that they have oftentimes been more interesting to their implementers than to their users, because the technical problems involved are so intricate and so they're exactly the sort of thing that are just hypnotically fascinating to computer nerds like us. One of the things that was really interesting to us about Habitat was the community that emerged and how all the users responded to it. But a lot of the newer things they were certainly taking advantage of newer technology, but oftentimes would look at something like this and say, well, what this really needs is 3D graphics. And you can make it better with 3D graphics, but what it really needs is, say, better community management tools. Get some sociologists involved, get some economists involved, all of that stuff. And I think that whole area has been underexplored.
I mean, it sounds like you've never really stopped thinking about this.
Oh no, I've been fascinated in the whole question of what happens when you put large numbers of people together, intermediated by technology, and that could be a virtual world like this. It could be online e-commerce. I mean, Randy and I built one of the first e-commerce systems after we did Habitat, and buying and selling is another way that people relate to each other, and there's all kinds of social institutions and conventions and complications that come along with that. I was involved early on in the Xanadu Hypertext project, which has now manifested itself as the World Wide Web, and we all know where that went. And so what people will do when you give them a bunch of creative tools that let them relate to each other in new and interesting ways is just fascinating to me.
So really quick before we go, I notice you've brought something here. I know what this is, but do you want to tell the people at home?
It's the very first IGDA, International Game Developers Association. They called it the First Penguin Award.
I remember that, yeah.
It's now called the Pioneer Award, but it's a recognition for being sort of the first in the industry to do something.
Named after the first penguin to jump into the water to see if it was.
Yes, that's a metaphor that both Noah Falstein, who was part of the committee that.
Oh yeah, right.
But I had also been very fond of, which is, you have a bunch of penguins on an ice floe, and they're hungry, and they want to eat the fish, but the fish are in the water. But there might be something in the water that eats penguins. And so what they all do is they all kind of crowd around at the edge of the ice floe, and they wait until one of them kind of gets nudged into the water, and then they all kind of look and say, "Oh, did anybody eat him? Oh, nobody ate him," and then they all jump in.
So did anyone eat you guys when you shipped this?
No. Although we have, I think an amazing career of being, a generation of technology ahead of the curve in whatever we're doing. It means that we did all of these cool things first, and then other people came along later and made billion-dollar industries out of it. And we get to claim we were the first, and those people got $1 billion. So I think I might have rather had the $1 billion.
What's up?
We are up on Commodore 64.
Oh, that's great. I don't think I can get the camera over there, but we have succeeded in launching from an original disk, probably for the first time since then, right?
Well, we had first time here. There was a guy doing it, original disc, probably, yeah. There have been a couple copies that have occurred between now and then, but this is the original one.
But we have it now running on a retail disc, and that's.
It turned out one of the challenges, for reasons which we've never completely wrapped our heads around, was one of the data discs proved really, really difficult to duplicate. Yeah. And it's just something about how the bits were formatted on the disc or something. It was just something wacky. Sure. But I guess we got that sorted out. Yeah. Although the things that people are running in emulators here are the original disk images, unmodified, bit for bit identical to the original Commodore 64 disk images.
Well, we're a little bit over time, so we're going to wrap it up with that. But just any final words before we go?
I'm amazed at all of the interest.
Anything from you, Brandon?
Nobody can shoot me. What the heck's going on? Actually, I want to say this has been a lot more amusing to play around with than I had anticipated. Just having a bunch of people around doing weird stuff. It's fun and it's strange, and it's also kind of this weird, like someone tried to paste in an Imager URL. Like that, I don't know. It's this combination of old and new that's pretty fun.
Yeah, and what I've kind of observed when I've been able to peek over and watch you is we're getting hints of the sort of personality that was in this. You know, the ability to remove heads and the sort of fantastical elements, and that's something that, I mean, I brought up Second Life, but it reminds me of stuff that users sort of generated in Second Life. But
Right. Well, there's a whole history of the transition from Habitat to Club Caribe and back.
yeah.
Because one of the things that was one of the
Well, yeah, we were talking to Randy about that earlier, about how they sort of stripped out all the fantastical elements and
then
made
they
it
put it back in again by popular demand.
Oh, I didn't know
over
that.
The next 6 months.
from all the old Habitat players.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was their initial thought was, well, this will be too weird.
Yeah.
And then people were saying, oh no, we like the weird stuff. So
It's so strange that people who want to interact on the internet want to do it in strange ways. I don't. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Chip. I'm glad you could show up here. Thank you for your help in bringing this back to life. It's just something I thought I'd never see.
I'm still somewhat dumbfounded by it.
I am too, frankly. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for everyone who trolled Brandon live in Habitat. If you guys aren't already playing, I believe if you go to neohabitat.org, there is a zip there for you to extract and auto launch from desktop only, from what I understand. They just wrote the tools recently, and they're still working on that. But learn more about the Maid at themaid.org, I believe. Yeah. And I'm Frank Spaulding, Brandon Sheffield.
Should we say our Twitch handles too?
Sure, yeah.
I'm Necrosoft Games.
I'm at Frank Cifaldi. Are you on Twitter?
I am at epopped.
What was it?
Epopped.
Cool. All right. And I think the Maid Oakland for the Maid. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Maybe I'll see you later in Habitat. Good night.